Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to council. We have the 25th meeting of the 144th Council of the Corporation of the City of St. Thomas on a beautifully hot day, and a couple exciting things tonight. So I will see if we can get going. From the members, any disclosures of interest? Seeing none, we'll go on to minutes.
I have a motion that the minutes of the meeting held on June the 10th, 2024 be confirmed. Moved by Councillor Herbert, seconded by Councillor Wookey.
Questions or comments on the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Next order of business are presentations. We have one presentation before us this evening, a Civic Award presentation to Jack Groot, and the Council of the Corporation of the City of St. Thomas proudly present the Good Citizen Individual Award to Jack Groot in recognition of your exceptional dedication and service to the people of Ukraine. We honor you in your unwavering compassion in helping those in need. Through multiple humanitarian trips, tireless advocacy, and fundraising efforts, you have demonstrated a profound commitment to improving lives and fostering positive change. May your extraordinary efforts continue to inspire and uplift those around you, serving as a beacon of hope and resilience for all.
Jack, thank you for making St. Thomas look so good.
I'm doing my best.
All right, we'll keep doing it. Here's we have a certificate for you recognizing what you've done and a special Civic Award pin.
That's awesome. Thank you very much, Mayor.
Let's see if we can get a picture. Michael's going to come up with his camera. Great.
Your Worship, Councillor Peters. Your Worship.
Okay. Councillor Peters, if you can hear me from here, you're up.
Yeah, yes, I can, Your Worship. Thanks. I'm wearing my blue and yellow tonight. And just to say thank you so much on behalf of multi-generations of Ukrainians who emigrated to Canada, and Canada gave them a new life and a new start. And I just want to say thank you to him for everything that he has done on behalf of the Ukrainian community. And he'll understand this as I say, glory to the Ukraine, Slava Ukrainu. Thanks, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Peters. And please, I think I shared with Jack that was the most exciting part of tonight's council meeting, or maybe the second most exciting part, but you do not have to stay and watch the rest. It is, we love you more than that. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. Now we move into deputations. We have one deputation before us this evening. We have Mr. William Pohl, professor, and students from Fanshawe College here with us to present the St. Thomas Railway Lands Environmental Design Competition designs. We'll just have them get set up.
Professor Pohl, it's great to have you here today. If I know you'll probably give us a little bit of an overview of this, but I wanted to say I was at the day where most of these presentations were made, and it was really an incredibly learning experience as to when you blue sky something, how many great ideas can come of it. So I'll leave it to you.
Thank you, Your Worship, and members of council, both in person and online. Thank you again for the opportunity, Your Worship, to come to you today and share some of the exciting things that Fanshawe College has done in the Environmental Design Competition 2024. My name is William Pohl. I'm a professor at the college in the Bachelor of Environmental Design and Planning. With me today in person is Ethan Aisnor, and online is Stuart McGregor. They're the students who won the competition, and they'll be speaking to their actual design. I'd just like to spend a couple of moments sharing the background with council.
Please.
And now. My presentation isn't moving. It's a PowerPoint. Should I call up the PDF? Okay. Actually, I did only upload the PowerPoint. Let me just check.
There you go.
Okay, let's see if this will advance. Yep, we'll do this. This is just a quick agenda for this evening. So Fanshawe College, I assume most of you know, we're primarily based in London, 43,000 students each year. We do have a St. Thomas campus, which we're very proud of, combination high school and campus at Bill Martin Parkway. And the college would like to continue the partnerships that we've built with the City of London, or with the City of St. Thomas and the school board, and expand that as you evolve as a municipality. Specifically, the School of Design hosts an environmental design competition. One of the main themes is our vision of unlocking potential. And that's, first of all, for the students, but also for our communities that we partner with. This year, this was the 10th year that we've had the environmental design competition. It's really part of our real world academic challenge to post-secondary students, first of all in Canada, but we partner with a couple of European institutions. And it's part of that experiential learning, bringing the academic learning from the classroom into the real world and engaging with the community. This year, we're very, very excited to use the St. Thomas Railway lands as our site. I think most of you know Professor Russell Schnurr, who's from St. Thomas. He brought us this site, and we were very excited to work with the community on it. What we were trying to accomplish, what we were thinking about from an academic perspective, is about the environment, rehabilitating the brownfields, looking at renewable energy, creating green space. Placemaking. This is such an important space in St. Thomas. Heritage from the Railway Museum, the railway yards at Queso Station, creating an active, vibrant public space. And finally, the community, thinking of residential, commercial, recreational uses, activities for residents, tourists, and guests, and a mix of density, housing, and access. This kind of project only occurs with community partners. We're very proud to have partnered with Doug Terry Homes, who was our main sponsor and financial donation, the Elgin County Railway Museum, the Queso Station, importantly, City of St. Thomas staff, and we also partnered with a steering committee. The competition was held this past April 6th at the Queso Station, a wonderful venue for this kind of event. We had 25 submissions from 9 different institutions and 10 finalists, had over 100 people attending the meeting, the presentation at the Queso Station. Some of the council members here today, as well as the mayor, were able to attend. And we had 5 independent professional judges and a keynote presentation by a well-known landscape architect, Walter Kem. The winners are here today, Ethan and Stuart. There was first place prize money. First place, second place was On Track, and the third place was St. Thomas Central. Fanshawe College is very proud to say that each of the winning submissions were from Fanshawe College. And with that, I'd like to turn over the presentation to Ethan and Stuart.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Ethan Enser.
And my name is Stuart McGregor.
And today we're here to talk to you about our design for the St. Thomas Railway lands.
Our design, The Connection, will become a proposed first complete neighborhood connecting to the city's heritage, art, green spaces, housing, social, and recreation. Our pathways connect the dots that make our design whole. Focusing on housing, the environment, and transportation are the key themes to our design. Building our connection to housing is the first step. As you can see in the next slide, There is a lack of housing on the site along Talbot Street and within the site itself. Designing housing surrounding the site's main points of interest will help make the neighborhood complete with the residents' wants and needs within a 15-minute walk. Through our site and regional analysis, we identified a large projected population growth. This growth comes from the PowerCo battery plant, which will bring 3,000 jobs to the region, and many more will be created through surrounding industries. So this population is expected to grow by 8,000 people by 2041. Our design will consider how to accommodate this future projected growth. Our proposal will feature a variety of housing types such as mixed-use residential, medium-density housing, and stacked townhomes. Our design will provide mixed-use commercial and higher density along Talbot Street to commit to the downtown values and core. Our proposal will feature our stacked townhomes will become an affordable housing option for first-time buyers, and we will dedicate 43% of our 570 units to affordable housing. In this slide, a rendered image of a pedestrian mixed-use pathway leading into the railway lands, fostering a connection between Talbot Street and the railway lands. So connecting to nature. A need for housing also calls a need for greenery. As this physiological and psychological benefits for people is undeniably necessary, when evaluating St. Thomas, it is clear that there is a lack of desirable, usable green space within the city's core. As a response, our design will plant over 650 trees and establish wetlands for both an aesthetic look while also promoting ecological benefits, phytoremediation, and stormwater runoff within the center of the site. The wetlands will offer stunning views of urban ecology with the Queso Station and the Railway Museum in the backdrop. To enjoy the natural setting, the wetlands will feature a boardwalk that is retrofitted from a former railway line, features a platform over the water to relax and enjoy the scenery. A space like this offers an intimate sense of place for visitors to gain a unique experience in an urban setting. Next, connecting to transportation. To create a walkable community, we must connect to transportation. St. Thomas has their own municipal transit system, which surrounds along Talbot Street and Queso crossing along our subject site, and also a new transit line between London, St. Thomas, and Dorchester. Our design proposes a regional transit hub between the Railway Museum and the Joe Thornton Community Center to promote tourism and economic activity to the St. Thomas downtown core and tourism area. We believe that establishing regional transit adjacent to the railway lands will lead to a positive effect for connecting the surrounding communities to the local economy. We will propose our design as the first transit-oriented community in St. Thomas. Transit-oriented communities will feature green spaces, pedestrian cycling routes, commercial, and housing within a close proximity to transit or hubs or station. And here's a rendered image. If you can go back, here's a rendered image of the Trans-Canada Trail along the regional transit hub that we have.
So active transportation will help connect residents to their destination, encourage improved physical health, and improve the local environment. We have expanded the Trans-Canada Trail to become our main east-west connector and provide an enriching cycling and walking experience throughout our site. We'll also create a main north to south multi-use trail along the Railway Museum to connect residents from Talbot Street to Wellington Road. Our trails will help connect the site to these main roads and all other neighborhoods that surround it. So now we'll look at the Elgin County Railway Museum. Our proposed design is readapting the Railway Museum to become an event space for creativity to thrive. The site will continue to feature the museum on the ground floor, but we'll be adding a second floor with the site for art studios. We will partner with St. Thomas Elgin Public Arts Center to provide a larger space for their community to expand, which will feature their exhibitions, workshops, a space to allow residents of all ages to connect to their creative side. So now we'll look at event spaces. Our design will promote flexibility by providing a large event space between Queso Station and the Elgin County Railway Museum. The event space will run along the Trans-Canada Trail as well. So connecting Talbot Street to the railway lands will showcase an open commercial plaza that features artwork that will depict both of their heritage of the railway and their future in art and innovation. It will feature placemaking such as patios, movable seating, street trees, murals, and gardens. We will propose a large enough space to allow for festivals, weddings, ceremonies, and markets to thrive. And lastly, we'll cover the sports complex. So as a complement to the baseball diamond and Joe Thornton Community Center, we will be providing an outdoor sports complex that will feature basketball, tennis, pickleball, volleyball, and lawn games. Developing the sports complex will connect residents in the surrounding community to recreational sports by providing a variety of accessible options. So our design will effectively establish a well-connected and complete community. Our proposal offers flexibility in how the site will be used and offers opportunity for further innovation of the site throughout its design. Connecting the city to its resiliency in nature and establishing the innovation in design will create a community that feels connected to the heart of St. Thomas and to all residents within the city and greater region. Any questions or comments?
We'll leave it open to council. So, Councillor Gibson.
It's great.
Excuse me, could I just add a few concluding remarks?
Please.
This was very much an academic experiential learning. It's intended to inspire and look at different ideas that the community could consider. We know that there's a long way to go before City Council and the community decides on what should go there. And we just hope that these ideas can inspire something fantastic at an incredible site here in St. Thomas. Thank you very much for your time today and the opportunity to present. Thank you.
Professor Paul, that's exactly what I was going to say. This is aspirational, not exact. It is a great learning experience for the winning group, obviously, but to see all of the presentations we saw that day is a great exercise in what could be, what might be, what parts of it might be. Councillor Gibson?
Thank you, Your Worship. Great seeing you, Ethan and Stuart. I was there for the whole day. It was awesome. I wish I had your young mind, because I'm telling you, there was a lot of things that was shown there, not just by your presentation, but the other 8. And it's remarkable on what we could actually do in that area if it flourishes, because we should really take a look at everything that each of them have given, because there's something in each of them that we could probably one day, sometime soon, we could actually implement that into that area. And I look forward to it. Thank you.
Great. Councillor, what's your name again? Jim?
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you. What a fantastic presentation from you guys. I mean, everything that our council's talked about for the last 5-6 years, you got it in your presentation. You talk about 540 units and 240 something are affordable. That's our mandate. We need more affordable housing, and affordable housing is in the range of 800 or something, around $1,000 a month rent. That's fantastic. You talk about the trails. I mean, we talk about trails all the time. Councilor Wookie's always talking about trails, and you've got big trails in there for us. You talk about transit. I mean, we're joining St. Thomas with the whole community everywhere. And that's really fantastic. And that's one of Your Worship's mandate, transit. He's always talking to London about trying to get things going, and we're working on that. So that's just fantastic. And for a private thing, for me, you kept the New York Central Ballpark, the minor ballpark. I played there as a kid, and it seems like I go by every other night and there's teams playing there. It's our only really good minor ballpark in St. Thomas. So you've kept all those things in perspective. Anyway, so I hope we can do something with this. I hope there's in the future we can relate to this and move forward with it. So, but anyway, once again, great job. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any further questions?
Peters.
Councillor Peters, I should be looking at my screen too. Go ahead, please.
Thanks very much, Your Worship, and thanks to Bill and the students for the presentation this evening. A couple things I'm curious to hear from the students. When your proposal, your design involves multiple landowners and different players. Any suggestions as to how we as council bring all these players together? And I really would like to hear from the students on this one. And I have a couple other questions, Your Worship.
Please, or Stuart, who wants to try us?
Stuart, do you have a
good way to say this? Stuart, good.
You can say something. So when we were looking at this project, we did realize that quickly that this project would have to be community led. That would mean that we would need to have some sort of communication with the current owners of these lands and seeing if they would be interested in providing more opportunities for growth within the railway lands and surrounding communities. Obviously, that takes a lot of hard work and communication between both the city, the owners, and any other surrounding properties that may be affected by any sort of change within the area.
Councillor Peters?
Yeah, thanks very much, Your Worship. I appreciate that. My second question is that you're the winners. The largest property owner in all of this is now Doug Terry Limited. Doug Terry Limited was one of the sponsors of this competition. And I'm curious to know what sort of communication the two of you may have had with Doug Terry and what you have come up with and what Doug Terry Limited's plans are. And is there some, have you had any indications of any common ground of how elements of all or parts of it could be incorporated into the new landowners' ideas?
So last summer, I worked with Urban 360 Labs with William Pohl and Russell Schnurr, and we did attend a steering committee with the City of St. Thomas. And we discussed with Representative Doug Terry Holmes and what they were looking for the site, which was was probably more residential than we probably provided in our design. But they were looking for a trail system and a park system with housing surroundings. So we did take that into consideration in our design. I do know that after the competition, Doug Terry Holmes made a comment into the Kelowna newspaper where I read the article, where he was happy with the designs, but I believe he was looking for more housing to accommodate that projected growth in St. Thomas.
Yeah, a supplementary to that, Your Worship. So based on what you've done, based on those comments from Doug Terry Limited, do you feel that there's room for compromise to perhaps intensify the residential that he wants to do, but at the same time preserve many of those unique elements that you have come up with?
Yeah, I believe so. I believe that what he is offering makes sense, that we do need more housing, especially when we're in this affordable housing crisis. But there's obviously the City of St. Thomas wants to keep these railway lands preserved, and there's clear indication with both the community improvement plan and urban design guidelines. We're looking for committing to having a community space or event space in front of Queso Station. And that's what we were looking for when we were creating our design, was following the guidelines from the City of St. Thomas.
Well, thanks very much. And Your Worship, thanks. You know, I can remember when I first came on council in 1988, the council, the day was just completing the railway lands redevelopment study to look at. So from 1988 to here, we're still looking at the railway lands and trying to plan a future direction. And one of the things I hope we can hear back from in the near future is a written report back to council as to the status of where we're going with the development of a secondary plan. Thanks, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Peters. I was going to bring that up, and I wanted to thank you tonight to Professor Pohl and the winners here. Great conceptual ideas. But we've got, as we've said in this council more than once, we've got maybe 50 more touches of this project as we move forward as a city, with all of the landowners involved, and a secondary plan to look at before we get anywhere close. But it's just great to pick some of this fruit sometimes, just to see what's out there and what's in people's minds. And so thank you for coming tonight and sharing. After spending the day, like Councillor Gibson, I was saying all along, when can we share this with council? When can we show some of it to council so that we can get some of the excitement that was caused that day? But to answer Councillor Peters' questions, secondary plan is still the next thing, or the next biggest thing we have to do for the railway land area, the whole block, and include all of the landowners that are in that piece, so that we can get some consensus from the people whose property it is as to how we want to move forward. But again, thank you for coming tonight and sharing with us. And for the people at home, stay tuned. Lots more visionary thoughts of what to do with the railway lands downtown.
Thank you, Your Worship, members of council. It was a pleasure partnering with the municipality, and we will make sure that we share all of the winning or all of the accepted submissions with staff and council. Thank you.
Super. Thank you very much. And I'll give you the same permission. The rest of it's not going to be all that exciting. So if you really would like to move along, you may, and we'll get into doing council business. Thank you very much. Madam Clerk.
Your worship, the council will now resolve itself into committee of the whole to deal with the following business. And anyone wishing to leave the meeting is welcome to, by the way. We'll now move into strategic direction and development. First item relates to draft plan of subdivision, official plan, and zoning amendment applications for land rise developments. I have a motion that report PD 2124 relating to the draft plan of subdivision, official plan amendment, and zoning bylaw amendment applications from Land Rise Developments, Inc. be received for information, and further that the application by Land Rise Developments, Inc. for approval of a proposed draft plan of subdivision file 34T 23502 be received, and further the council authorize staff to prepare site-specific draft amendments to the St. Thomas official plan and zoning bylaw 50-88 to permit a proposed residential development on lands described as part of Lot B or Gore Lot 44, concession north of Talbot Road, geographically in the township of Southwold, now in the city. And further, that a public meeting be scheduled for July 15th, 2024, in accordance with Ontario Regulations 543/06 and 545/06 as amended.
Clark.
Moved by Councillor Wookey, seconded by Councillor Clark.
Questions or comments?
Peters.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Peters. Go ahead.
Thanks very much, Your Worship. And my question sort of pertains to both of these applications that are on our agenda this evening, and staff can probably just reply to, I don't need to ask the questions twice. One is I'd like to understand the connection from this development in particular to Wellington Road. Is there or is there not going to be a connection, a road connection to Wellington Road? Because to me, that's important not only for access and egress to this site from not only a residential perspective, but an emergency service perspective, etc. And how I hope that there's been some thought given to how we link from a trail perspective, link this property, because this is sort of a leap for St. Thomas. We are going down the hill and up the hill, which is something different for us. And I really, I'm excited to see this, but I also, though, I'm cognizant of ensuring that we have good connectivity to St. Thomas as we've known it. And, you know, this, and as we go forward on other developments, this is, you know, we've got to make sure that we stay connected as a community. And my other question to staff would be overall is sort of what is the best case scenario where we're going to start to see shovels in the ground for either this development or the one we're going to be dealing with next. Thanks, Your Worship.
Thank you. Mr. Pompili, there was a bunch of questions in there. You unpack, and if I think you didn't get one, I'll ask it again.
Thank you, Your Worship, and I'll do my best to answer some of those questions. I think I'll start by saying that there are two applications here today. The subdivisions were applied for separately, and that's why you'll see both of them on your agenda today. But the reality is that the two developers and staff have been working collaboratively to provide, you know, a really unique opportunity so that they can create a singular community consisting of a mix of housing, various housing housing forms, and various integrated community design and features throughout this whole subdivision. So they have been working great together. So combined, these two applications do create that whole complete community. And through that community and through this submission, there is, in speaking to Councillor Peters' questions, throughout this development, there are opportunities with trail systems that they've included throughout the development between both subdivisions, along the perimeters, and with specific and to the active park and the woodlot here as well. and throughout the woodlot to provide multiple connections to the major streets that this combined development abuts. So there are connections to Wellington Road, there are connections to Major Line, and there are connections, ultimately there will be connections to Sunset as well.
Right.
So this community provides a broad range and diverse range of trail and mobility options throughout the subdivision, within the subdivision, to those major roads. So the developer has done their part in terms of providing those opportunities. We as a city have to take that next step and ensure that we've got now those connections from Wellington, from ultimately Major Line and Sunset, so to connect this area. And that's something that as a staff, as a council, we'll be working on collaboratively in the future. So there are those opportunities through this development. There's a second question in there.
When?
Timeline.
Yes.
And I have a supplementary.
Yep. So as far as timeline through this submission here today, we're scheduling a public meeting for July. There'll be opportunities to ask the developer what their specific timelines are for development to get shovels in the ground. But it's my understanding in my interactions with them that that they're anxious to get moving. They know there's a pent up demand for the form of housing, the type of housing that that they're going to be bringing to this community. So I know they're anxious to get moving. The specific timing is a great question to ask the applicants and the developers at our public meeting in July.
Great. Councillor Peters?
Yeah, thanks. And my other question is how does a child living that moves into this subdivision walk to the corner store? And I mean that in all sincerity. This has been an issue I've raised on other developments. If you live at the southeast corner of St. Thomas and Centennial and Southdale, the closest corner store to walk to is at Fairview and Elm. And how do we ensure that developments like this encourage, and what can we do to encourage some commercial development in that area? And again, I use that analogy of walking to the corner store. I can leave my house right now and be at my corner store in 30 seconds. Out there, it's a long way to Lyndhurst Variety, or I don't even think there's a corner store in Talbotville anymore. Thanks, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor Clark?
Thank you, Your Worship. Along the same lines in terms of what can we encourage, I wondered if there's any legal mechanisms in terms of intensification. Now that we've had our last week's report on the amount of growth that we're going to see, is there any legal ability for us to put in place requirements in terms of number of units, or making sure that there's on all these new settlement lands the opportunity to make the best use of the land possible, or is it still all in the hands of the owner of the land, the developer?
Mr. Pompili, I read quite a bit of intensification in both of these applications, but maybe can you share, this is a subdivision plan agreement. Does it have to end up being what it says?
Yeah, absolutely. And through Your Worship, that's a great question. And these are conversations that we've been having with the developers, and they're conscious of it too, in terms of wanting to be in a position to respond to what the market is demanding. And through this development, we're getting quite an extensive mix of housing. I believe in total, we've got upwards of 300 plus single detached dwellings, where usually in previous developments, we're close to 100% single family. But there's a strong mix here of singles, of medium density townhouse forms, and quite a broad range of high density development. I think well over, 1,000 to 1,000 units being proposed within this development. Some of the limiting factors and this is just with the lands that are being brought forward through these developments. There will be additional opportunities for lands along Sunset Drive, along Major Line. But the most limiting factor is the servicing capacity So the capacity that's there now can accommodate this growth. As far as accommodating further intensification, I think those opportunities will be present, and those opportunities are probably better along those other streets within this area, along Sunset in particular, when those lands come on board, and also Major Line. So there will be those opportunities.
Thank you. Councillor Clark, do you have a supplementary? Okay.
I appreciate the answer, and I'm glad to see it. I'm just wondering though, if we felt as a city that a project didn't have the type of intensification that we wanted, do we have any legal recourse or any mechanisms to encourage further intensification?
Mr. Pompili?
Through your worship, the tools that the municipality has are tools within its official plan and within its zoning bylaw. So with this application, there are amendments to both. The amendments that are being brought forward are in line with our current policies, actually exceed our policies for the mix of housing. But if some of the tools that a municipality has, though, is through those tools to broaden requirements for higher density of uses.
Councillor Woodkey.
Thanks, Your Worship. Mr. Pompili, don't sit down. Good exercise opportunity for you.
Yeah.
You and I have talked about this one several times, and I just want to get on the record some of the things we've talked about. One of the things we want to avoid is a whole subdivision where there are fences around the entire subdivision blocking it from the natural environment around it. And can you just mention, I mean, I can see it, what's here, but can you talk about how we've tried to avoid that in this circumstance in terms of park space or in terms of how the layout's gone? Just so, I mean, for both human traffic, animal traffic, all that kind of stuff, please. Thanks.
Yeah, through your worship. No, there's been a lot of thought by particularly by the developers here, but with input from staff and input that then we communicated that we heard from council, because I know council's been waiting and anticipating for this plan. So there's been a lot of comments brought forward. So there's an extensive trail system throughout this development, and what's unique about some of the trail systems, it's in the rear of some of the single family homes adjacent to the natural area, so that there will be that connection there with the residents of this area to have that connection to the natural environment that their community is located within, and then through that, those connections then link up to the storm ponds, to the active parks and the woodlots throughout this development. So there's a lot of thought put into that by the developers and by staff in terms when we were having our consultations and our discussion. And I think council will see that through this development.
Councillor Woodkey, go ahead.
Thank you. And so I want to thank you for this, because this has been, to me, an exemplar of what we're going to be doing in the future in terms of our care and concern for the trail systems and natural environment, because we have areas 2 and 3, which are all surrounded by different natural heritage features and parklands that are going to be doing the same thing. So I think we've gotten ourselves off, and I want to thank you and the developers for getting ourselves off on the right foot in terms of doing things that promote active living. My last question is this: do you think, and this may be for Mr. Dlebek, but in terms of crossing Wellington Road, pedestrian crossing, I'm just thinking about how far up towards Lyndhurst Variety do we control, and would there be a ped crossing, a lighted ped crossing there? That might be for Mr. Dlebek, I don't know, but thank you.
Yeah, through your worship, I can start, and Kevin can bail me out if I need it. I think what this sets up is it now puts the onus on the municipality to ensure that there are those proper connections from this development to the rest of the city. And I mean, we're undertaking a transportation master plan, and that may be one of the opportunities for us to kind of address how those connections can occur and how we can plan for that infrastructure going forward. So there is some homework for us to take home as a city to make sure that that we follow through on those next steps, so that this new community this establishes that it has a connection throughout this community, multiple opportunities for that. But the next step is to ensure that there's that connection to the rest of the city, whether it's from Wellington Road or Sunset.
Go ahead. Sure.
Yeah, one last follow-up. Sorry. The transportation master plan, is there a mechanism where we sit down with Southold and Central Elgin? Because we're all up in that same area. Is that something that is that something that's not, you know, whether it's legislated or there's a structure already, an intermunicipal structure, or are we doing the transportation master plan ourselves and just informing them of what we came up with? Thank you.
Mr. Delovic?
Through Mayor Preston to Councillor Wookey, no, we're not doing it in isolation. We are working with our neighbors as well as Elgin County. It's not just as collaborating agencies, but not just as commenting agencies, but as collaborating agencies.
Yeah, great. Further questions or comments? Mr. Pompili, I'm sure I didn't add up as fast as you were reading off numbers. What's the total number of housing units in these two subdivisions?
If I'm wrong in my numbers, I'm sure I'll get corrected by the developer, but generally about 1,500 units.
It's a very good start for our needs. Excellent. Thank you. And thank you to these developers. We're happy to be at the public meeting and coax them along. Any other questions from council? Seeing none. So this is on the first one. All in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Next item relates to a draft plan of subdivision, official plan amendment and zoning amendment application by LaCram Inc. I have motion that report PD 2024 relating to the draft plan to official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment applications from LaCram Inc. be received for information, and further that the application by LaCram Inc. for approval of a proposed draft plan of subdivision file 34T 23501 be received, and further council authorized staff to prepare site-specific draft amendments to the St. Thomas official plan and zoning bylaw 50-88 to permit a proposed residential development on lands described as part of Lot A or Gore Lot 43, part of Lot B or Gore Lot 44, part of Lot 45, concession North Talbot Road in the geographic township of Southold, now in the city, and further that a public meeting be scheduled for July 15th, 2024, in accordance with Ontario Regulations 543/06 and 545/06 as amended. Moved by Councillor Kohler, second by Councillor Gibson.
Questions or comments from council?
Peters.
Thank you, Councillor Peters.
Thanks, Your Worship. Just again, to reiterate the comment they made on the previous application, the corner store, commercial development. Where is that going to be with 1,500 new residential units? Thanks, Your Worship.
Thank you. Mr. Pompili, you have some
news?
Your
Worship. And sorry, I didn't answer that in the first round, but there are lands, the lands in this area along Sunset Drive that are designated as highway service commercial. So there are opportunities there. Obviously, there isn't a market there for that. The hope is as those lands develop through this development and hopefully some additional development that will bring some density and some of those community uses there, that'll create the market for a corner store or some more commercial opportunities. But there are opportunities with existing zoning and designation in this area.
Right.
Just the market has to be there for it, and hopefully this triggers that.
Okay. Any further questions on this? Seeing none, all those in favor? Are there any opposed? That is carried. Excellent.
The next two items relate to notices of public meetings to take place by Zoom on different dates, and they're from the Committee of Adjustment. So the first one is relating to 25 Alexandria Avenue. It's a minor variance by Pressbuck Construction Limited to permit a covered porch 4.17 meters from the front lot line, whereas the minimum requirement is 6 meters. The second is for a minor variance by Hydro One Networks to permit new electrical transmission towers to penetrate the outer surface as defined in the City of St. Thomas Airport zoning bylaw 36-2019 to a maximum elevation of 300 meters above sea level in the Yarmouth Yards industrial area. Your Worship, if there are no further items from the members for this committee, we'll now move into community engagement and services. First item relates to the ice allocation policy review for 45 and over NBC Hockey League. The Director of Parks, Recreation and Facilities will provide an update relating to a review of the ice allocation policy.
Mr. Bray.
Good night, everyone. Thank you, Mayor Preston. This is an outstanding council item from August 8th, 2022, a little long on the teeth, but I thought I'd close the loop. If you will recall, the 40+ Hockey League was concerned that their long-standing ice block was going to be moved. That was resolved through council discussion. The ice allocation, we will be coming back to council with a report on that, whether we move forward with changes or not. We're looking at items such as legacy ice and general and also putting a lens on gender ice. So we will be bringing that forward.
Okay. Questions or comments of Mr. Bray? Seeing none, thank you for bringing that to us tonight.
Next item relates to the community garden policy. I have a motion that report PRF 1924 relating to the community garden policy be received for information. Moved by Councillor Wookey, seconded by Councillor Herbert.
Questions or comments on the garden policy? Seeing none? Sorry. I got somebody here. Councillor Clark. Sorry, Councillor Clark.
Thank you. My question is kind of related in that as the city grows, are we examining and looking at any new possible sites for community gardens?
That's a really good question. I'm going to give it to Adrian, but it's a great question.
Through you, Mayor Peters, to Councillor Clark, we have in some of the new developed parks through the south end of town, there was some areas ID'd as potential community garden locations. So we've also had a community group come forward to us, which is what brought this policy to light, in order to possibly establish something in the south end. And then there will be continued with this policy, continued thoughts on development in future developments as well.
Great. Councillor Peters, I see your hand.
Thanks, Your Worship. Adrian, thanks very much for the report. Your Worship, just as a bit of background, I've been involved with the Kane Street Community Garden since its inception over 15 years ago. Many of you may have seen me cutting grass. I have cut grass at that garden for 15 years. We have 19 garden plots over there. The vast majority of them measure about 10 by 10. They rent for $25 a year. We also have a large garden plot that is sort of a communal plot, but we grow food for the food bank. Most of the plants get donated. Karen Huggett just donated a number of plants for us, and so I have some experience with community gardens, and I just wanted to make a few comments on not only the report but some of the guidelines that were included in the brief. And one is, and I'm not looking for an answer for these tonight, Adrian. I just want to flag them for you of just some observations of 15 years in the business. And just as a we've had over the years at Kane Street an amazing garden coordinator, and because she moved away, she's now back. But I became the de facto garden coordinator of Kane Street this year. So I'm the mayor of the Kane Street Garden, and that's one of the things I just wanted to comment. We've been calling it the Kane Street Garden because one of the challenges we faced, Adrian, is that the term community leaves the impression that it is a garden that you can help yourself to. And I don't mind losing a tomato or a couple radishes, but losing all my tomato crop or all my radish crop. So the signage, I went and took your advice and looked at the signage at First Ave, and signage is going to be really important. And I'll talk to you further about Kane Street, but we need to stress that people are paying for these plots to grow their own food. And so signage will be important. You raised as well, and equal access. We need to think about returning gardeners. We've got gardeners, much like Karen and myself, that have been there from day one. And if we have to start bumping people that have been coming back year after years, like I think of Danny, Sharon, Francis, couple others, Max, they've been coming back year after year. And if we're going to be encouraged to, provide equal access, I just don't want to see us bump longstanding members out. The issue of accessible garden beds, we would love to put an accessible garden bed into the Kane Street garden, but it costs money. And who's going to pay for accessible garden beds? And but as I say, we're prepared to do it. The question of an agreement, we all sign a waiver that I don't know if it means anything or not. It's something that we created at the Kane Street Garden, but I don't know if it's legitimate or not, and indemnifies everybody. But if there's going to be any sort of agreements, the city needs to develop a master agreement. The garden coordinator, who is going to run these gardens? Is it the city, or is it going to be, the garden itself? And I would hope that we lean towards the garden itself, because the local gardeners know best. This question of liability insurance in here is something that I think really needs to be clarified, because we would not generate enough revenue on our garden plot rentals to have to take out a community garden required to obtain a comprehensive general liability policy. There's no darn way that we're going to be able to afford that. So the whole development of fees and structures, I don't know if our fees and structures are what we use at the Kane Street Garden are the same as what they're using at First Ave Garden. So I question that, and I'll just close with signage. We need to make sure that we have consistent signage amongst all the gardens, but really pleased to see the report forward. But I just needed your worship to offer some personal comments of 15 years experience being involved in a garden.
Thank you, Councillor Peters, and our thanks to you. And I know your work at the Kane Street Garden. I know when I need to look for you, I often will just drive by that corner first and find the guy on the lawnmower or pushing the lawnmower or doing something else at the corner. So thank you for your help with that. And thank you for your advice. And I'm sure we'll take it all together, and this process and program will continue to bloom. Further questions or comments? Councillor Herbert.
Thank you, Your Worship. Councillor Peters raises a lot of interesting questions. I guess some of mine would be, is it first come, first serve? It open January 1st. If I want to apply, can I come and apply for a plot? What if there's 25 or 30 people? How do you decide who keeps it? I mean, these people have been there for many years. I'm not sure what your definition of community means. St. Thomas community or community of Kane Street people? Not sure, but I don't know if there's any specific answers right now, but I just kind of curious on some of those. If people wanted some and all of a sudden they're all gone. So
yeah.
Anyway, thank you.
Through you, Mayor, to Councillor Herbert. It's certainly not meant to put in place to change anything that's going on now. We want to keep, our communities such as the Kane Street Garden going. This is because we've been approached by groups that want to start new gardens, and we need to have some consistency throughout the city. So we need to have a consistent agreement. We need to talk to purchasing about, there are other communities that do require liability insurance. Is that something we want to do? It's in there so that we can refer back to it if needed. It doesn't mean that we need to impose it. And for sure, we're not going to go after people that have been there for a long time. This is just when we're opening new gardens, how do we want to see them operate? And we want to make sure that everybody does have the access that they want to these gardens if it's needed. I mean, we want to see these areas in areas where people lack the space in their own property to grow food, to give them the area to do that. So in higher density areas, it would be required. Like I said, it was laid out in an initial plan for a South End Park, which those properties have a lot of land to grow their own food on. So it's just a matter of developing a policy that's consistent, that we can bring the groups together and we can work together towards something that works as for our whole community and whatever we determine that to be for each garden.
Councillor Wookey.
Thanks, Your Worship. I was thinking about the First Ave Garden and the fencing, and how, just a general comment, it's not part of this report. How's that whole fencing thing worked out? Is it done what they've wanted it to do? Would we recommend fencing on new community gardens? So I walk by it all the time and I drive by it all the time. I just always wondered how that's working out.
Right.
Thank
you, Mayor Preston, Councillor Wookey. That fence was installed to keep the deer out because it is in a ravine location. And I believe it's done its job. But they've also gotten to a point where they've had to put locks on the gates because people are coming in and taking things that aren't theirs. So we can also use, our social media platforms and our website to let people know that these people are paying for these plots. We need to be respectful. Fence isn't needed for all areas. It's just, it was required for that location to keep the deer out.
I want to thank both you and Adrian and Councillor Peters tonight to get that message out too. It is, although the word community was used in the garden, it's not yours unless you've been there working and planting and doing the stuff. So I'm glad we had an opportunity tonight to share that at home too. And if we want to start more community gardens, this is the way to do it. We've got some structure now on how to do it.
Yes.
Thank you. Further questions, comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Next item.
Next item relates to the 2024 Arbor Day tree giveaway event, an update. A motion that report PRF 1824 relating to the tree giveaway event update be received for information. Moved by Councillor Wookey, seconded by Councillor Baldwin Sands.
Questions or comments? Councillor Wookey, then Councillor Baldwin Sands.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I'm very pleased to see that it would be one per household, because with limited supply, we don't need to have somebody coming and getting enough trees for their 2-acre lot. And any comment about varieties of trees or what we might do in the future, because I'm a tree nerd and I'm all about different varieties of trees. Thank you.
Through you, Mayor, to Councillor Wookey. We would stick with the Carolinian species, which is what we did for the last one. And we are looking at different options. For instance, the City of Guelph offers a website where homeowners can go to the website. They can determine their soil type and their location. It will tell them what kind of tree they should plant in their location. And then it will also, on the back end, we can see who's asking for what. So it will determine how many trees we can give away and who's getting them. So they'll be pre-registered. And then when they show up, they can pick up their tree. We're still figuring out all those details. So.
Councillor Baldwin Sands.
Thank you very much. And I wish to thank you very much for this report. Your enthusiasm for this program, you can tell, is threaded throughout the report itself. I have a few questions, if I could, please. I've noticed how much the capacity has increased and the enthusiasm in the community for this program. I was hoping that you could make some general comments in regards to the capacity of the tree planting program in our community and how it's expanded in just a very short period of time.
Through you, Mayor Preston, Councillor Baldwin Sands. I think that part of the enthusiasm comes from the work that our Parks Department is doing and really, doing the tree inventory around the city, making that public knowledge, protecting our trees by the municipal and private tree bylaw, and, also becoming one of the tree cities of the world. It really, gives enthusiasm to the public to support that. And we are really excited that I also have staff that are looking for these grants and they're finding ways to be able to give this to the community without it coming out of our operations budget, which is very helpful. So I have to attribute a lot of the success back to them. And they're really passionate about making sure that we get out that trees are just as important in a community as everything else.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you for again referencing Tree Cities of the World. I think it's an amazing way that we have embraced it and how the community, especially certain members of the community, are running with it. The next event, there is that level of enthusiasm yet again for that. I was hoping that you could talk a little bit about that level of enthusiasm, about when it's happening and how it's going to be rolled out.
Sorry, through you, Mayor Preston, Councillor Baldwin-Sands, can you just confirm are you speaking about this event itself or? Okay, so it is mentioned that we are going to do a second giveaway because we were honored with receiving a grant through CN's Eco Connections from the Ground Up program for $10,000, which allows us to not only pay for the previous giveaway that we did, but also do a second one, and we're shooting for the National Tree Day. I think it's September 28th, 2024, which is very appropriate to be able to give away about the same amount of trees that we can do. And then we're also working in our departments to see what we can do for next year to continue the enthusiasm for these types of giveaways.
Thank you. I'm also anxious to see the capacity of this program continuing to grow. I appreciate the partnerships that you are talking about and the relationships that you are building with this. There is also a relationship that you are building with one of our conservation authorities. Can you talk briefly about that? And then I have one last question.
Absolutely. So KCCA is one of our longer standing partners when it comes to tree planting. That is also done through grants. When they receive the grants, they work with the City of St. Thomas to determine what areas are in need or could use additional tree planting in town. We focused around the Lake Margaret area. Last year, we did some additional planting in Waterworks Park. And we haven't started yet to talk about plans for this year, but we work with staff who, through the tree inventory, they noted plantable spaces. So we work on building those areas with, various sizes of trees to be able to fill in, the areas that may not be just active parkland, but can show people, that we can have those different species of trees throughout our parks and expand on those.
One more.
One more. Thank you very much for that response. And I appreciate the building the relationships with partnerships and creating those really great things for members of our community. You talked a little bit about the enthusiasm that there is in the community for all things environmental. And one of the other events that you have coming up is the Wild Wisdom. I was wondering how the registration for that is going and if you can provide an update from last week's report.
Sure. I'm sorry, I don't have actual numbers, but I know that we have a great registration for this upcoming event. So it's coming up on June 21st. It's going to be between 10 a.m. and 12 noon. At Pinafore Park, it's going to start at the Celebration Pavilion near the bandshell. And staff are going to be there to walk people around Lake Margaret, depending on how hot it is and how far people want to go, to see the different things that we have implemented around Lake Margaret, such as the partnership with KCCA to remove the invasive species, the bat boxes that we have built and installed around Lake Margaret. There's also protection for the snapping turtles. There's some nests in the area. So, and people are going to be able to see the native plants as they're starting to bloom. One of the most important ones is milkweed, and it's starting to bloom right now. So it'll give, this is part 2 of 4 for the Wild Wisdom series, where we want to bring the public out to show them what we're doing in our parkland and why it's so important to protect these spaces. So registration for that is linked on the St. Thomas website now through tourism. They're helping line all that up for us. And yeah, we're looking forward to seeing people this Friday at 10 a.m. at Pinafore Park.
Thank you very much for all of those responses. Appreciate it. Thank you.
I have Councillor Herbert and Councillor Peters.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you. The more trees, the better, I always feel. But my question is, am I restricted where I can plant the tree? Do I have to plant it on my own property? What if I plant it on a city boulevard? Is the city responsible for it now? That's basically, that's my question. Who's responsible, or can I just plant it anywhere?
Through you, Mayor Preston, to Councillor Herbert, we hope that people will take these trees and plant them on their private property. Because the city has certain tree specifications for boulevard planting. So we want to see them on private land taken care of by the homeowners.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
So just thought, but so there is no restriction. Would you, if you saw one of the trees planted, would you contact them and say, move it on your own property, or would you just leave it there?
There might be some conversation to say we would like to see it moved off of the boulevard, just depending, because the boulevard trees are planted in certain areas for certain reasons. So, I mean, staff are going to welcome a conversation if people bring that up.
Councillor Peters?
Thanks very much, Your Worship. Adrian, what are the chances, I know that there's somebody else sitting watching this meeting tonight that would be keenly interested in knowing this, and that what are the chances of having pawpaw trees added to our Carolinian list? They're an amazing tree. The fruit is very tasty, but we need some diversity in our pawpaw population in St. Thomas. And I'm sure the other person that's watching this meeting is probably smiling right now.
Through you, Mayor Preston and Councillor Peters, I have very knowledgeable urban foresters back at the office that could give you a very specific answer to that. I know that the pawpaw fruit is delicious, but it doesn't last long enough to remain at the market, so that's why it's not sold. It is one of our most important Carolinian species. From what I know about it, it's an understory growth type tree, so you want to have it in an area where it's shaded. It can be something that we can look into and maybe provide the public with more information on it.
Any further questions? Adrian, thank you so much. We overdid the tree handout earlier this year, and thank you for dealing with it as best we could with the number of people. We now know that's likely to happen the next time, and as we continue with our tree system here in town and trying to replant a number of trees that this city has to do over the next number of years, I thank you for your help in it.
Thank you.
Your Worship, unless there are any further items for this committee, we'll now move into infrastructure and civic operations. First item is a request for temporary exemption of the animal control bylaw. I have a motion that report ES 3324 relating to a request for a temporary exemption of the animal control bylaw be received for information, and further that a temporary exemption from section 6.1 of the animal control bylaw 71-2011 be granted to the Canada Day celebration event organizers to permit a petting zoo at the event on July 1st, 2024 in Password Park, and further that a temporary exemption from the same section of the animal control bylaw be granted to the St. Thomas Camp supervisor to permit a petting zoo as part of the St. Thomas Camp Nature Week on July 10th, 2024 at Pinafore Park. Moved by Councillor Kohler, seconded by Councillor Clark.
Questions or comments? Sure.
Thank you, Worship. Is there a restriction on what type of animals can be there for the petting zoo? I know when I was in Australia, at Steve Irwin Zoo, they brought out a 8-foot boa constrictor that you could put around you and pet. So I don't know if that's the type of thing you're looking here. Are these just 4-legged animals that you're going to pet when we open it up to?
I'm going to turn it over to our petting zoo expert. Okay, Fire Chief? No, I'm just kidding.
Through the mayor to Councillor Herbert, I don't believe there's any restrictions on the type of animals you can bring into the petting zoo as long as they have the proper safety protocols in place. So, and trained staff. So if a boa constrictor is being used, then I would assume that the staff who are administering that are trained to understand when to take the boa constrictor away from the child.
Or vice versa. Yeah. Further questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Unless there are any further items from the members for this committee, Councillor Kohler has an item.
Councillor Kohler.
Thanks, Your Worship. Through you to the Director of Transportation. A while back, I brought up some concerns that transit riders are having with the window time pickup about being 15 minutes prior and 15 minutes after. And since then, it's just seemed to be getting worse where people, I don't have a problem with the 15 minutes after. Sometimes if they're running late, people should expect that maybe I'm not going to get picked up on time. But people are missing their rides because the buses are actually coming early and leaving prior to their pickup time, and it's happening more and more and more. So I'm wondering if we could give direction where this window time is revisited, especially the 15 minutes prior, because it's just it's becoming more and more, and I'm getting lots of calls on it, and actually have most people can't provide emails or other things like that, but actually do have some email correspondence that shows that the bus was early and actually vacated prior to that. And some of it is because of where the pickup time is going to happen and the bus can't get in there, so it moves to a different location. But I don't believe that they should be leaving prior to the original pickup time. So if we could maybe look at that and see what we could do, because it's just happening more and more, and the calls I'm getting is kind of proof of that.
Yes, great. I see the director nodding. Next item.
Your worship will now move into corporate governance and administration. Nothing on the agenda at this time unless there are any items from the members. Councillor Peters has an item, Your Worship.
Sorry, Councillor Peters, go ahead, please.
Thanks very much, Your Worship. I'm not looking for a verbal update. I want to direct this to Michael Bradley and Maria, perhaps, and then have a report come back. But it does pertain to verbal reports. Multiple departments, and this is not a criticism. I'm not pointing at any one department, because multiple departments provide verbal reports, and we even ourselves as council, I think, almost create a verbal report environment. I know I did it tonight, and we all did when we started asking questions of staff, and we're putting them sort of on the spot. But I'm not a fan of verbal reports, Your Worship, and I even if it's not a full-blown report back to us as a council on an issue, even the form of a memo or a briefing note that just gives us something to work with. I can think of a few examples where we've had verbal reports given, and then I'm asked questions about it, and it's like, well, how good of notes did I just keep to a verbal report? And it's nice to have that piece of paper that I can refer to say, this is why we are not proceeding with your initiative, etc. So I wouldn't mind hearing from Michael if there could be perhaps a discussion amongst the management as to how to deal with issues that we bring up as council and how they are reported back. Because a lot of times these issues are issues that our constituents have brought to us. And I just like paper trails. But thanks, Your Worship, and I'll look forward to hearing from Michael.
Thank you, and I'll give the city manager a second on it if you would like.
Through you, Your Worship, and thanks for the question. I think it's a good one, and it's certainly being new to the organization. I'm not used to verbal reports, so I do have it on the leadership team agenda for this coming Thursday. Certainly, I was more familiar with the use of briefing notes to get back to council. If council's got a question, but it doesn't need a report back, it doesn't have a recommendation. A briefing note is a fairly efficient way to get information back to council, but still maintaining the public record, having something on the public record. So then it gives you that piece of paper that you can get back to a constituent with. It also maybe takes some of the pressure off the clerk to try to record the contents of that verbal report so that you can report it back. So we'll be having that discussion at leadership team, and I'm happy to circle back with council on that. Thank you.
Okay. Next item. Anything else on this agenda? Seeing that.
Council will now reconvene into regular session. I have a motion that the recommendations, directions, and actions of council and committee of the whole, as recorded in the minutes of this date, be confirmed, ratified, and adopted. Moved by Councillor Baldwin-Sands, seconded by Councillor McCauley.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
We'll now move into petitions and communications. First item is a request for a proclamation, flag raising, and jumbo lighting request from Amanda Stark. I have a motion that Council of the City of St. Thomas proclaims September 30th, 2024 as Orange Shirt Day in the City of St. Thomas, and further that the Orange Shirt Day flag be flown at City Hall on September 30th, 2024, and further that the Jumbo Monument be lit in orange on September 30th, 2024 in recognition of Orange Shirt Day. Moved by Councillor Baldwin-Sands, seconded by Councillor Gibson.
Questions or comments? Councillor McCauley?
Thank you. In Amanda's email, she does reference how she worked with the city manager last year for the event and has indicated if this is still a possibility. So I don't know if that will continue as it did last year.
City manager?
Through you, Your Worship. Yeah, we'll. I meet with the city manager's office team tomorrow morning, and we'll discuss it then, and we'll get back to us.
Okay. Further questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Your Worship, no further items under petitions, unless there are any items from the members. We'll now move into unfinished business of council. Unless there are any other items under unfinished, we'll move into new business of council.
Any items? I have one. I wanted to remind all at home, all of us, everyone, that there is a transportation master plan refresh that's happening. And on June 25th at between 4 and 7:30 at the Memorial Arena Auditorium, we'll be gathering all of the great thoughts that the citizens and users of transportation in St. Thomas have. This is all about roads and sidewalks and trails and our transit system and anything else you can think of that's transportation related. So we'd love to hear all of your ideas. This will be put together with our official plan, the plan we read last week from Watson, our new zoning bylaws, all the things that we're trying to look at as our city moves forward. This relook at the transportation master plan is quite important. So for those of you at home, please tell your neighbors, your friends, if you've got something to say, please, we want to hear it at the transportation master plan open house. That's June 25th at between 4 and 7 at the Memorial Arena. Thank you.
If there's no further items, we'll now move into bylaws. I have a motion that leave be granted to bring in the bylaws.
Peters.
Moved by Councillor Peters, seconded by Councillor Kohler.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
I have a motion by Councillor Peters, seconded by Councillor Kohler, that the bylaws be now read a first time, referred to council and committee of the whole, and read a second time.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
First bylaw, Madam.
First bylaw is a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the council meeting held on June 17th, 2024.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Second bylaw.
Second bylaw is a bylaw to confirm and authorize continued participation in the OMERS primary pension plan and the retirement compensation arrangement for the OMERS primary pension plan, each as amended from time to time, of the employees of the Corporation of the City of St. Thomas identified within the bylaw.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Third bylaw, please.
Third bylaw is a bylaw to prohibit and regulate the discharge of sewage, drainage, stormwater, and industrial waste in the municipal storm and or sanitary system and open water courses.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Fourth bylaw, please.
Fourth and final bylaw is a bylaw to appoint a municipal bylaw enforcement officer, being Darnell Basil.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Rise and report successful passing of the 4 bylaws today.
Spectacular.
I have a motion by Councillor Peters, seconded by Councillor Kohler, that the report of council and committee of the whole on the 4 bylaws be received and adopted. The same be read a third time, engrossed, signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed and numbered.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Next order of business is public notice. Notice is hereby provided that administration intends to introduce a report at the July 15th, 2024 council meeting requesting approval of an unbudgeted operating budget expenditure relating to funding for a new housing stability supervisor position. No notices of motion this evening. Your worship, there is a need to move into closed session. I have a motion that this meeting be closed to deal with the position plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality, to labor relations matters, and a personal matter about an identifiable individual. Moved by Councillor McCauley. Seconded by Councillor Gibson.
Thank you very much. Before we vote, we'll explain that we're about to move into closed session. When we finish with closed session, we'll rise from closed session only with enough time to adjourn our meeting for tonight. So we will not be going back to open. And thank you all for joining us tonight. And we will see you next week. So all in favor of closed session? Any opposed? Carried.